Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Dion McCormick, no relation, as well as Sarah Mitchell, head of our documentation department. Today, Dion is going to be giving a presentation on reporting, but we're also here to answer your questions, and you can type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Dion. Are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you doing today? It's been
Uh,
a little while.
it has been a little while. Good to have you
I
back, Dion.
know.
Thank you.
Well,
So
hold
I've
on one
already
second.
made
Let me close my door.
sure.
Sorry, there was a meeting in the other room. It was getting a little boisterous. Can't have that.
So they're probably figuring out what features to include. That's how it happens. So
By the way, the secret word for today is boisterous. So in
boisterous.
case,
I like that one. That's terrific. So
very
Dion, I've already
cool.
made you the presenter. If you want to share your screen, I'll
Excellent.
let you know when that appears. There it is.
It is.
Great.
To care is to share. So I'm sharing
Sharing
my
is
screen.
caring. Very nice.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you taking time out of your valuable week to join us. And we want to say thank you to both new users and experienced users. Today, we're going to dive into a really fun subject, which is reporting. As much as we get away from reporting, it's always there, and I think it will always be there. What's nice is Alpha has an enormous amount of features and capabilities to build both dashboards, but also reporting, and that really gives you a breadth of technology and skills, and more importantly, sort of tools in your toolkit to be able to help your users really perform great on their regular business activities and give them the information they need when they need, and also to do that both on a web browser like at a desktop, but also mobile. It's really, really cool. We're going to talk some of those nuances today. So we're going to dive into that in a minute, but first want to make sure that this is also a Q&A session. So if you have a question about the content that's presented, or you have a question that you have a burning desire to understand, just go to the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel, put them in there. Our esteemed colleagues, both Dave and Dave and Sarah, will both be available to review those and also help make sure that when I make a mistake, it gets corrected immediately. Also, and remember, at all times, you can always send things to guides@alphasoftware.com. Our team reviews that and uses that to produce new content, new training, and other aspects like that. So it really helps us and also will help you. It really is takes the time to do that. Now, one other quick thing before I jump into it is summer is gone, which is crazy how fast that went. And now we're into the fall. And one of the most exciting parts of fall is DevCon. And so it's actually one of the busiest times for the team because we're not only doing our day-to-day jobs, keeping things going, getting new releases, new capabilities, etc., but we also run into developing DevCon, which we love doing. And there's some amazing content that is being prepared and finalized for our upcoming. And you think about that, October 5th and 8th, that's just around the corner, a matter of a couple weeks. So if you have not registered, and I'm assuming everybody here is registered, but if not, please, please, please go to the alphasoftware.com, DevCon 2021. Go in there. You can hit register now. It'll take you through the registration process, and then you'll be locked in. As we've talked about before, very important that we will be recording these in high definition. I think it's 16K video this year. We've decided to take it way up there, and that will
16K.
be
Also 8mm for those who prefer it. Yeah.
And this year it's AR. We're going to do it in AR. It's going to be augmented reality. You'll actually be sitting on Dave's shoulder when he presents. It's really fun. No, but we will be recording it in very high quality, both audio and video. And that is because we know in a couple day session, you can't sit there. You have other things may need to. So you're not going to lose a minute of content, and that will be available for you after the event is done, so you can go back in and A, see the ones you didn't see, or B, go back and watch the ones that you really enjoyed, like mine. And then that way you could just see them and be able to enjoy them over and over again. Actually, and what I highly recommend is, and only do this with non-other technical people. Maybe your wife or daughter or son would like to watch one of these presentations on YouTube or on your big screen 65-inch. It's going to be that level of quality. But we really do respect your time. We understand that you have a lot of commitments. We really enjoy you being here. We enjoy you being at DevCon 2021. And again, we're going to make sure if you can't make the whole thing, that you will get the full value out of it. So that is Alpha DevCon 2021. You can go to the homepage. There's a link there, or you can go directly to the. Let me go ahead and copy that and just put that right into the chat. So it's in there in case you want to get that link there. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is reporting. It's kind of a back to basics, but it's something that is really critical. So we're going to focus today giving kind of an introduction to reporting, talking about some of the nuances, some of the changes that have happened over the last year or two. I mean, that has not been a static capability. Over time, it has been enhanced and improved and has really become more and more mature. And really, for me, every project I do has an element of reporting involved with it. And there's some really cool tricks to make, like, sometimes people are, can you build a screen? And that's why I want to plant the seed, is that sometimes the simplest can also help you handle the most complex. So there are situations where someone will say, I really want this screen in the system to display this information, blah, blah, blah. Well, to build that in UX may be fairly time consuming, but actually you could generate a report and display that in a UX. And then also reports have the ability to add a certain level of interactivity. So you could actually use reports as a user interface capability. And that's one thing I just wanted to plant a seed, is keep that in mind. You don't always have to build a UX. I mean, there's a lot of functionality and capabilities there, but sometimes just doing a report, presenting it in there, and adding some interactivity might solve the problem. So we're going to talk about creating reports and displaying reports today. And again, this is kind of beginners. We can do follow-up the next couple weeks. But what I want to do is go through and talk a little bit about report sources. Where can you get data to drive your reports? Also, the report editor, not editory. Maybe that's a copyrighted word we want to use. It's brand new. But also the report editor, kind of some of the capabilities and features that are in there. So let's go ahead and talk about creating reports. And one thing I'm going to touch upon is that concept of arguments and using session variables, because often you want your reports to be very flexible in terms of how you use them, so you can use the same report in multiple places without having to recreate the wheel. Or more importantly, maybe you have a sort of a multi-tenant scenario and you want to use that same report with multiple tenants, but you don't want to hard code everything. You want everything to be dynamic. And this really, there's some tricks in there that I've learned that I hope will be helpful for you to understand that. So I'm going to jump into Alpha, and I'm at the Alpha development environment. Again, I'm showing the current full development environment. So for instance, you may not see the control panel if you're using the community edition. Haven't fully switched over for our training here, but we're going to focus on the web projects control panel, and I have a empty project. So I'm starting with kind of a blank project to get started for our demonstration and review today. First thing I did just to support it is I went into Tools, Alpha DAO connection string, and created a default connection, because most of the time today I'm going to talk about using really SQL data sources. That's what most 95+% people do. But I will talk about some of the other cool capabilities that are built into the report system for you. So I have a report. It's our Northwind database. In this case, it's an Access database, but it doesn't matter what database it is. Given the Alpha connection stream technology, it could be many, many different types of, DB2, even things like Excel files. You could even do Access, Postgres, MySQL, SQL Server, you name it, you're good to go. Okay, so I want to make sure I had that. Now, I'm on my web projects control panel, and we focus mainly on here, but there is a small little indicator tab here called reports, and that's where you manage the reports. Now, for the old hats in the control panel, we also, and this is for the old school, and again, if you're community edition, ignore this, you won't really see it, but you have reports in here. And what's kind of neat is Alpha has the ability, this was like the traditional report generation capability. Some people have older solutions that still have that available. You can actually bring these reports from the old control panel into the new ones. There's some nice little features built into Alpha to do that. I won't really cover them today. They're very kind of specialized for people who've been using Alpha a while. But just to let you know, I will be focusing on the reports in the web projects control panel. That's where we're at there. So to create a report, it's a fairly straightforward step-by-step. And in fact, couple different ways you can create them. So I'm going to cover them. In fact, there's 3 different ways you can create the same report. So let's start with a really simple report. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to click Report. Notice I have the ability to do like letters and labels. I can also link to a reporting services that's more advanced for people who are using SQL Server reporting services. But this is the go-to one here, Create New Report. So immediately, the first thing it's going to do is say, hey, we have a couple questions for you. First, where is the source for your data? Now, there are 3 sources that are available for you. A SQL data source, which is a traditional SQL database, or a connection string to something like Access, Excel, etc., where we kind of treat it like a SQL database. We also have custom data source. This is really a super powerful one. Custom data source allows you to really build, it takes a little more coding, a little bit more technology, but you can actually create an XBasic function that grabs data and then returns it to the report. So essentially think of it as kind of a person in the middle that basically will go grab some data, format it, and give it to the report. And the neat thing is the report editor just goes, oh, thank you. And it doesn't really have to know anything about the original source. So an example of that would be if you have to do a bunch of manipulation of data before from SQL and you want to do it there and then present it to the report, you could put it there. Another more useful is, let's say you need to create a report based on an external API. Well, you can create this custom data source, create a little XBasic script that will call out, grab some data from a web API, pull that data in and get it ready for the report editor. And then the report editor goes, great, thank you, and treats it like it. That's the key thing, is that it kind of separates you from the original source and really gives you infinite flexibility in terms of where you're grabbing your data. I mean, it could be literally flat files on the data that are sitting on a server somewhere, or a JSON set of data, or an API, or a non-conforming database, or something different, or like a document database, or something really interesting from there. You have a third option, which is really cool, is transform. So if you are using transform, you can actually punch out to your transform solution and be able to grab data from transform. And one of the coolest things about this capability is that it takes care of understanding. Transform has a different data model because it's really a JSON. It's not a traditional database the way things are managed, but it kind of hides all that complexity for you. So it's really becomes a point and click. I want to create this report on these transform forms, and you bring that in and it just handles it from there. So it really makes it easy for you to create some cool reporting on top of transform, which could be a complement to some of the cool new dashboarding that's being done also within transform from that mode there. So you get your choice: SQL data source, custom data source, or transform. Today, I'm going to focus on SQL data source. So, and then I'm going to really focus on that for the balance of our presentation today. So now that we know where we're getting our data from, we haven't told what data, but we just kind of say generally, this is how I'm going to get my data. The next step is the method to generate report. And we're going to start here from the top and go through them, but you can start with a quick report, a blank freeform report, or a blank layout table report. And I'm going to explain the differences between these two here. Now, an important thing to realize is I can always start with a quick report and convert it into the others. So often when I'm just getting started with something, I can do a quick report, then turn it into one of the others, and then continue to work from there. Or you can start with blank. So let's go through each one of them fairly quickly, just to give you a feel for how they're. And what I will during that is explain the differences between the blank freeform and the blank layout table report. So we're going to use quick report. I click OK. First thing it's going to do is say, well, okay, you're using SQL. Where am I going to get my data? So we're just using like a grid or a data-bound UX. We can support a connection string. And then I can click Next. And now it gives me a selector. So I can look at the data within my data source, and I can either create columns from table or view, or I could even create my own custom SQL statement. So you could write your own little SQL statement if you wanted to do something fancy here, but often I tend to do stuff in views and then grab them from there. So I'm just going to click Customers. Once I've selected that, you'll see I have all my different ones. To make this simple, I'm just going to select a few just to make it pretty simple. So I'm just selecting a subset of all the fields that are available. Now, you'll see as I'm doing that, it's building my select statement. So I kind of see how it's going to talk to the database from there. And as we mentioned, you could take that and modify it to make it even more specialized just by using the custom SQL statement there. You'll notice that we have a where and order by. I'm going to come back to talk about the where in a few minutes, but let's go ahead and just click order by, and I'm going to order it by company name. So you can see it's just building up that SQL and going from there. Now, we're going to come back and talk about arguments in a moment because they're very helpful, very powerful for you. But I'm going to go ahead and just say, great, I just want a simple list of customers from my database ordered by their company name. And I click finish. This is a little message that comes up. It's called really maximum records to retrieve. I have a very small database, so I'm going to leave it as 0, and it's just going to grab everything in that database. But if let's say you had 1 million records in your database, like it was a massive database, well, you may not. What it does is Alpha will bring down a sample set of records to be used during the report previewing phase. So this allows you to determine how many, and it has a little note here to explain this in more detail. But you know, you can say, oh, out of that 1 million, just bring back 50,000 or 100,000. Now realize it is a subset of the overall data, so your reports may not work exactly until you get them all set up. But it's really nice if you have really large databases. But in my case, I'm entering 0 because I want to bring back all the customers. Okay? So this is the quick report writer. Very straightforward. You'll see here are the available fields. Here are the selected fields, and talks about field properties. And we'll walk through these different tabs. So I want to have all of them on here. So I'm going to put them all on there. And as you see, as I click on here, it updates what the different field elements are. And it allows you to do some really cool stuff very simply. So for instance, it shows you how to format it, whether it's growable or not. That means will the field extend as it grows? The width, the standard width of that field, etc. You'll also notice down here we have a summary. So you can actually create summaries for rows right within the quick report, and it will put those summaries in your report. So you can say, give me a count of, say, the customers or something else. Notice these are all text, but if I like had price or quantity or something, that may be helpful because you could say, give me a maximum, minimum, etc. from that. This will change based on the data format or data that is associated with this field there. So right away, once I've selected these fields, I can go to preview, and you can see there is my report. Nothing fancy yet, but it really is quick and dirty. I've got a new report, took a few minutes. I can save this and start using it from there. Now, obviously, this is a little minimal. Like for instance, I'm not big on the ordering. I don't like the customer ID there. So you can come back in and you can say, okay, you know what? I want to have the city at the end. I want the customer ID to display as ID, and company name, I just want to say name. So this allows you to do some quick and dirty changes to it, and then you can quickly go in and do preview. And that's why it's called a quick report. There are some nice capabilities in here. So a couple things it can do, which is really nice. Grouping. So I can click on grouping, and I can pick a field and say group on it. So let's go ahead and say group it on there. And we'll go ahead and we'll say preview, and boom, now you'll see it immediately set up a grouping based on company. So it did two things. One is it segmented report, repeated the portions, and then put that kind of factor it's doing the grouping on up top above each one of them. And again, this is kind of quick and dirty. I'll show you how you can turn this in and then optimize it from there. So that's grouping. Also in report settings, you can change some basic things about the report. First and foremost is you can change like the fonts that are being used, the colors, etc. I can go in here and say, this is my customer report, which is a title. I can align that. Let's say I want to align that into the center. And then I can include a logo, and I can put in a title date. So let's go ahead and just add a few things there. So I'll do my preview. And you'll see that it puts a date up here, it puts that title up here, makes it look a little better. And so that there are some nice little formatting tools that are available. I'm gonna go ahead and save this report, and I'm gonna call this customer, and I'm just gonna say _QR for quick report. Okay, Now you'll notice as I build that, it's now a new feature in here, or a new file basically, and that can be used later on, which we'll show you in a few minutes. Okay, a couple other quick things. You can do filtering in here, so you can hard code the filters, although I really think arguments are the way to go. You can also create calculated fields. So you can actually add, like, let's say you had quantity and price and you wanted, stock on hand, or, value of stock on hand or something like that. You could actually write a little expression in here, and then those fields would be available for you to add to your report. So instead of having to do it in the database, you could do it here, and you can create some pretty fancy stuff because you can use XBasic to do that reporting, the XBasic syntax. So one other thing it has nice in here is a style builder. We have some classic styles that are built into it. And then let's click section border so we can go there. And so as you can see, it gives you a nicer style. It puts like a background on the heading. And all of that is modifiable. You can come in here and say, oh yeah, I want a different color. You can also create your own custom here, and you can create a style sheet that will style it, and it will allow you to style every element of it, including doing some nice little features like rounded corners. So it looks a little nicer. You'll see, for instance, it just looks a little more professional and something your people will enjoy. So that's kind of the editor. So I'm going to go ahead and save this report. I'm going to go ahead and go out, and I want to show you one other key concept when you're doing it. So if I run this report, excuse me, it is basically going to return all customers, but maybe I want this report to actually filter it maybe by a city. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, or I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to go customer_city. So I'm going to stay with a quick report, but I'm just going to go in and show you how you can use what are called arguments to dictate the behavior and the data that's presented. So let me go ahead and go into customer city. Same thing here. Everything is the same. So when I double click on it, it goes into the editor immediately. But I want to actually change sort of the behavior of the data that's reported there. So to do that, I don't double click on it. I right click on it, go to data source, and I can either show it or edit it. So when you want to go in and change, like maybe the query needs to be different, or you're going to add some arguments or the sorting or something else that's related to how it extracts the data from the source, you go and use this here. So I'm going to click edit data source definition. It's asking me if I want to edit or create a new. I'm just going to say edit. And it walks me back through the screens you saw before. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is at this here, I'm going to keep the items here, but I want to go ahead and include a whereby clause. So for instance, I could click where, and I could go city. Oops, let me go here. Add new condition. I could say, for instance, city is equal to, and then let's go ahead and put in Berlin. Okay. And in fact, it kind of shows you the different cities, so I don't have to make a mistake there. So I'll click OK. Now notice this is hard coded. So if I preview it, you'll see that there's one city in Berlin. Let's change that to be London. And you'll see we get multiple records here. Now that's cool if you wanted to create a dedicated report in London, but maybe you wanted to be able to give the users the ability to say, pick a city and then go ahead and do that, and then be able to do the report from there. So what I'm going to do, instead of hard coding it, I'm going to go here and define an argument. And what an argument is, basically it's a variable that's passed into the data source that allows the data source to use it for extracting the data that you want. Then that gets passed along to the actual report itself. So it's kind of that middleman concept there. So I'm going to define an argument. This brings up my argument definition. You can see you can have more than one, so you can create very sophisticated, but I'm going to go ahead and create an argument called city. I'm going to tell it what kind of argument it is, meaning what type it is, because that dictates when it's talking to a SQL database, has to know, oh, if it's this type of argument, I should put quotes around it. If not, how should I handle it? So I'm going to leave it as character, because city is a character element there. So you'll see, and the default value in this case is I'm going to put London. And I like to put the default value in there because then it'll save you a lot of typing later on. You'll see in a few minutes from here. So notice also you can change a bunch of different stuff here. Don't use that a whole lot, but it's just when you go in to select the argument, you'll see it'll pop up a message box to allow you to select that argument. You can control what that looks like. So I'll click OK here. Now you'll notice I've defined the argument, but my where clause is still the same. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to go add new condition. I'm going to select city is equal to, and now instead of specifying a value here, I'm going to insert an argument, which I just created called city. And I'll click OK. So as you can see, it basically rewrites the where clause, and instead of putting in a fixed value, it puts in the colon and then the name of my argument. So when this runs, it's going to basically on the fly say, oh, what argument is it? City? Okay, I'm going to format it correctly and insert it into this where clause and allow you to do it. Now, arguments are really nice for two reasons. One is that it keeps things clean. It also knows what the argument type is, so it handles it. But also really important for arguments is that it SQL injection attacks. It prevents some of those elements there. So like if you're looking for a number and they try to spoof it and put in text, so arguments are really handy. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Oh, before that, I'm going to go ahead and do preview records. Notice it brings up here, it says argument and what it is, London. I'll go ahead and click OK, and you can see that. If I preview the records for this, I could just go in here and change the argument right there, click OK, boom, you'll see it's working from that. Now, also, if you're doing this, you could start and write this yourself. You can insert arguments, columns, etc. So this little insert button here is kind of like a quick way to, it's like part of your editor to help you on the editor from that standpoint. Okay, so you'll notice now we have a new setup where I have an argument being passed in, and then you'll see that it's built the select with a where clause in it, where city equals city with the same ordering there. So now I click finish. I go ahead and go in here. It's going to ask me how many items I want to pull. I'll go ahead and keep it as 0. Now notice before it's actually letting me even into the editor, it says, hey, you know what? For that sample set of data, this query requires an argument. So could you please provide the argument? I'm going to go ahead and do London, and I have London. Now everything works the same, and you're back into the editor. And you can see in this case, it does the report, but it only does it with a single city, which is London. So that's the quick and dirty. So arguments are super powerful. Now, one other thing I want to show while I'm here, actually, I'll do it on the next step. I'd rather do it on the next step. It will make a little bit more sense. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So now I have my 2 reports. I have customer city and quick report. So I'm going to take a little tangent now. That's the basics to create a quick report. But I want to show you how you can create 2 other types of reports and what those reports are. So I'm going to click New, create new report. I'm going to keep it to SQL data source because we're going to use that same customers. But in this case, I'm going to create a blank Freeform report. And I'm going to click OK. You'll see the process is very similar. It's when you get to the editor, you're going to see it's different. So I'll go ahead and demo Northwind. I'm going to go ahead and select customers. I'm going to do a couple of them here. I'm not going to go through the all argument stuff here just for simplicity and all that. Okay, now you'll notice immediately, now that we're in our new report, we have a much different editor. And you're probably familiar with this editor. This is the Freeform report. So this is a traditional Crystal reports kind of style. So you'll see over here is where we have our report. You see we use a band concept to say what's at the report header, what's in the detail view, and what's in the report footer. So this is super flexible. You can basically lay out pixel perfect reports with this tool here. So for instance, I can go over here and I can grab company name, drag it over here, and you can see it puts company name here. And I can create customer ID. There you go. And then I can go to contact name, etc. Let's do a preview. Now, the way I preview here is you'll notice up here, there's a little button here called print preview the current report. And you'll see there's my report. And so I can go back in, I can start adjusting things. You'll notice one thing that's nice is it's got the little guidelines, so I can make sure things are lined up properly when I put them on there. I can put other things on this report. So you'll notice over here, I have some system things, like so for instance, I'm gonna stick the date up there in the right-hand corner of the report. And then I could put like page number X of Y down here. So I'll put that here. And then maybe also you'll see over here, we have a whole bunch of other things. So let's go ahead and just put a piece of text here. Select it and then go like this. And I'll go confidential. So very flexible, very able. And then I can always preview this. And you'll see, notice it put up the current date here, maintain my thing here. And I'll scroll down. And let's see, I think it's always bottom. Where's my base there? Oh, it's not showing that. I must not have gotten that one right there. But it will put this, report footer. That's at the very last page. But you notice, and these are the bands here. If you notice, we also have the ability to put in like a page header, page footer. So every page it's different. I can insert grouping. So I can insert a group. So let's try that real quick just to show you what that is. So I'm going to insert a group. I'm going to, and it's asking me, where am I going to break? I'm going to put it on city and it's labeled city. So I'll click OK. You'll notice it created a group city header and a group city footer. So now I have new areas. So I can go over here and I'll scroll down here and I'm going to put in city here, the value in the field. Okay. And I'll save this and we'll call this customer Freeform. Do that. And you'll notice I'm starting, it broke here, city, it put the footer in here. So essentially I'm kind of recreating what I did with the other report, but I have like infinite control. I can put in things like rich text, HTML, bitmaps, things like that. You can also do some really cool things, which we won't cover today, but things like sub-reports and linked reports where you have like a primary report and then you want for each record to put in some other sub-report records. It's super flexible. I mean, you can do amazing things with this report writer, and I've done it before. You could even display S3 images and display images on the fly and thumbnails and things like that. Now, I want to go ahead and show you a trick. You notice how this may take a little while? What I mentioned before was I like to use the quick report. So let's go into the customer quick report and start there, because what you can do is up here, notice you have a button saying open in report editor. So I'll click here and then I can say open Freeform, and then I can open a copy of this report. And so I'm going to call this customer FF auto gen. Okay. And notice what it did. It converted that quick report into a Freeform report without me having to do all that layout. So if I run it, it's going to look like that quick report here. But now I can go in and say, you know what, I want that, I want to go in and change the city. I want to change the layout. I want to make some adjustments to it here, etc. I want to add a second layer to it. Like I want to put some more fields here. So often I'll start with the quick report and then save a copy of it into either a table layout or a Freeform, because then I am doing more editing and I've already got some layout. It's done some groupings for me and things like that. So that's just a little trick for you to know that if you want to accelerate how fast you generate reports, what you do is start with a quick report and then save it as a new report in the different format from there. So that's all I wanted to show you right there. So we'll close that, save it. Now let's go through our last report type. So I'm going to start the process again, create a new report, SQL, but in this case, I'm going to use a blank layout table report. And this is a super powerful report. And in fact, almost all my reports now are layout table reports, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. Same concept, select my source, select there, and city, finish it, click OK. I could add those. You'll notice it looks kind of similar to the Freeform, but notice something. It uses really a cell-based concept. So instead of Freeform, we're putting things in cells. So think of it as like Excel, where you have a grid and you're putting things into it. So let's say on this detail point right here, I'm going to put the customer ID inside there. Oh, and put it to them. Let's see, edit, undo. Oh, well, we'll just leave it there. Company name. And notice when I'm dragging it, it's actually adding new columns for me. So I can say contact name. And then I could add in city. So it's a little different from the Freeform because everything is cell-based, but it's really powerful for a couple reasons, which I'll mention in a few moments. Now, if I need a new column here, I can right-click on any of these cells, and I can do a number of different things. One is like, for instance, I could add a new column, and it will insert a column over here. Or I could add a new row where I want to have 2 rows in my header, say, per this thing. But I can do a preview right here, and you'll see here's the header information, here is the data itself. So I can go in here, and if I double click on it, it does the same thing as edit cell content. So I can go in here. You'll notice that it's saying, oh, this cell is actually static text. So I'll just say name and click OK. So it's like editing an Excel worksheet from there. Now, if I double click on this one, you'll see that it's not bringing up static text, it's bringing up a field name. And I could actually change that by doing it, or select some of the system ones from here. And you can also do some cool things with expressions where you can actually create an expression. So it takes, say, a field from the database and does some modifications. But you'll see there's some other really cool things you can do in here. Beyond that, you can do things such as put a static image in there. You could put your own static HTML, absolute HTML, which is like from another location. You could do a linked report, put a whole other report in a cell. And then you could also do charting, although this is the older kind of structured chart from that standpoint. So the thing about layout table reports is it's cell based. Think of it as a spreadsheet. In each of your cells, you're putting that information. So for instance, let's say, okay, I'm going to scoot this up here. I'm going to go ahead and add a new row. Add a new row. There we go. And then I can say, I can select a row here and I can insert a row before. Let's say I can go up here and I say, you know what? I'm going to insert the date there. So I'm going to put that. Actually, what I usually do is go right here and say field, select, and I can say system date. And what it would do is it's going to put the system date in there. So now you'll see we have that there. So I'm not going to go much more into this. It's very similar to it. It uses the same concept of having grouping in page header, page footer, but the editing is different. Now, you may say, well, Freeform is really easy, and it is. It's really nice, drag and drop, really, and you're going to build reports probably a touch faster with Freeform. But there's a huge difference between the two, and I'll go ahead and talk about that in a few moments. But there is a big difference, and that's why I want to make sure you know the different report types. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and customer, we'll call this customer layout table. Okay. So at this point, this is a quick and dirty introduction of how to create a report, how to add arguments, and then how to use the different report editors to lay them out differently and to intermix them between the two from that standpoint there. So I want to shift gears now and spend the next few minutes here. And I want to wrap this up in about 5 or 6 minutes, so it's going to be pretty quick. But just to show you how you could then use these reports. So let's go ahead and go into web components, and then we'll talk about the major differences. So I'm going to create a UX here, and I'll click a blank UX, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create controls. I'm going to go ahead and put in a panel layout, and I'm going to insert a panel header. Actually, I didn't want a control bar, so I'll delete that. I'll put a piece of text in there. Report demo. Okay. Then in here, I'm going to create another panel card. Add panel card after, and I'll do 2 of them. And I'll move my panel header up so it's right in the right location. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to make this panel card maybe 20%. Okay, so we've got 2 panel cards, panel card 1 and 2. And in fact, I'm going to call this PC1, and I'm going to call this PC report. Okay. Now I'll save this as report viewer. Okay, yada, yada, yada. And I'll go into properties and we'll go ahead and use project style, which I think we should be good shape there. Okay, so what I want to be able to do is show the user a report. So I'm going to add a button in here. I'm going to go show report. And what I want to do is when I click this button, I want to open up one of my reports and show it in the PC report here. So let's go ahead and here, I'm going to go ahead and double click on the show report. Remember, I like to do JavaScript actions and then associate them with buttons, but I'm going to shortcut it today. So I'll go in here, add a new rec, and I'm going to type the word report. And you'll notice that there's a number of XBasic actions that are already action JavaScript that's ready to go for you. And the one that right here is open or email a report, letter, or layout. Notice we also have email. So we can actually literally email a report also, which is really cool. And so I'll go ahead and do there. A couple other ones here. There's advanced export to Excel. You can actually use a report definition to export your data to Excel, Word, or HTML, which gives you some really nice looking capabilities. The other is running a report that's embedded into a UX component. That's a little different, but I'm going to focus on this one, open or email a report. Asking me the report, so let's go ahead and do our quick report. So not too fast, but I'm going to select the report name, and I'm going to select our customer quick report. This is our plain vanilla one. Okay, I'm going to come back to this in a few moments. Initial view, PDF or HTML. I'll do HTML to start. Now, very important, in the initial view with a quick report, you can do any of these, PDF, HTML, or HTML page. Very important for you to understand. HTML is wicked fast and is faster than PDF because PDF, the server has to take that report, generate a PDF, and then show it to the user. And so there's some time that goes in, and PDFs are heavy, so there's times that it take to get from the server to the web browser, et cetera. But you may want to display it as a PDF. It's really up to you. There's some benefits there. But HTML reports are very fast, very lightweight, and render very quickly. So I'm just going to select that. And I'll go ahead and click OK. Save that. Save this. Oh, I'm sorry. I did one thing incorrectly. Once I've decided what report, I need to tell it where to show it. So I could use window, which would be a pop-up window, but I like to keep it on the page. So I'm going to go panel, and we'll go to PC report, the panel card there. Okay. We'll do a working preview. Okay, so we have our left panel here with show report, and then right, I can click that. And you'll notice in a moment, here's my report. Bum-ba-da-na. Notice how fast that rendered? Because this is HTML, this is not PDF. Now, if I want to, and these can be controlled, is I can now export this as PDF, Excel, or Word, or print it as HTML, and that's all built into the report capability. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. In fact, when you're in here on the show report, you'll see down here that I can select my different options of what the user should be able to use that, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let me go back here and let's just change this real quick to say, do it as a PDF. So you'll notice the screen does change a little differently. There's some different aspects to it because of the way it works. And let's go ahead and show you working preview here. Okay, we'll do the show report. You can see that there's two things going on here. One, and please bear with me. One is the time it took to generate that report. You notice it took longer. The other, and this is an artifact of me being in the working preview here. The reality is it would, oh shoot. Let me reopen that real quick. It's a little wonky there, but in working preview, sometimes it shows up as in here. So what would happen is the report shows up in here and it's just a PDF. So you don't have those other elements to it, but it is rendered as a PDF. So it looks good. You can immediately download it, print it from there, and do other things along those lines. But the key difference is HTML is much faster than PDF and less intensive on the server. The server actually has to do a fair amount of work to generate that PDF and then send it to the user. So let's explore this a little bit more. I want to show you some other options here. So again, you can pick the view you would like. You can add in your own filters here. I'm going to show you how to pass an argument in a moment, but you can sort of do your own filtering here. Although I tend to like to use filtering the arguments. It's a little stronger here. I can click email report. That would automatically allow you to send it to email. I can have different print options here. And then I also have the ability, where is it here? Where is it? We'll do the argument in a moment from there. So we'll go ahead and save there. So let's do the argument part. So I'm going to do the two things. I'm going to create a text box, and I'm going to call that text box city. And then I'm also going to add another button here, and I'll call that show report city. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add the action like we had before. And I'm going to select, this time I'm going to select customer city because we have that argument to it. Okay, now you'll notice that it still has this filter and order. And again, you can use that. You don't have to use arguments. You can actually just go right in here and build that up right from stuff on your UX. But in case this, I want to actually pass in an argument. Again, arguments are safer. That's another reason to use it. So I'll click there, and I'm going to insert that city placeholder, that field. So what it's going to do is when it runs, it's going to grab what's in that field, pass that along as an argument. And then what I want to do is I want to show this in that panel card. And notice, by the way, they also have dynamic panels. So if you want to keep opening up report after report, you can do that. So click OK, save that, save it, and we'll do a working preview. So I can go in here. I now have my city. I'll go ahead and put in Berlin and show the report. And you'll notice the Berlin. Actually, did I set that as PDF? Let me see here. Did I screw that up? Ah, yes, I want to do it as HTML. It was set as PDF. Okay, I've got to wrap this up. So I'll go and put in Berlin, show report, and you'll notice Berlin. I can go in here and say London, show the report, boom. There you go. So that's why I like arguments. And again, you don't have to use arguments. Like for instance, let me just show you that real quick. So if I go here to show report, I can go in here to this, and I can go into the SQL filter, and I can build this. I can actually say city is equal to, now very important, I'm responsible for formatting it correctly, including the little things here. And again, so now I'm going to basically do that. So I'll achieve the same result, but I do like arguments, and I keep coming back to that, but you will save yourself a lot of pain on that. So I'll go here, I'll put in Berlin, and I'll do show report. And let's see. Oh, go back into show report, city. I'll have to find out what that is, but it's very similar to that. Now, one last thing I wanted to show you before we open for content, I can have another button here, and I'm going to call that table layout. Now, as I mentioned, with table layout, it's faster and more efficient. So we'll add a report. And we're going to go ahead and select our layout table report. And I can click OK. Initial view is going to be HTML and there. And we'll go into panel card, PC, report. So, and then you'll see this is very similar. I could create arguments or pass in the pieces. There we go. And stuff from there. So quick reports, way to get started. Freeform, much more flexibility, but you're kind of limited to doing things with PDFs. And then layout table is really your go-to. Over time, you'll gravitate it because primarily it's super fast. And like, especially if you're on a mobile device, PDFs can be a little cumbersome on a mobile device, on a tablet, because of the way they render and they're kind of big objects. With HTML, you'll get these nice smooth scrolling and other things effects happening using a table layout because it's displayed as HTML, which the browsers love and handle really, really well. This is really merely touch on it. We talked about the ability to use the different types of reports here. Start with your quick reports, but look at free forms and layout tables. You can pass in arguments, and arguments, there's ways of passing in things like session variables. We weren't able to cover that. We didn't have enough time today. But I want to go ahead and open this up for questions now to the team, so we don't step away without any questions.
All right. Well, let's get some questions into our
Okay.
Q&A webcast, huh?
Yeah,
So
I know.
starting off with
A lot more on the A's and not many Q's today.
it was a great session though, so I'm not I don't think we have any complaints here. Let's start out with the very first question was, can this reporting stuff, can it be used with the DBF files? I know we don't like to use the DBF term, but yes, you can
I
use
believe
DBF
you
files
can.
with both layout table and the Freeform report editor. So
Yeah, because they're based on DBF files originally. So
Yep, not a problem. The next one says, I am a heavy Crystal user, and by that they mean Crystal reports. Does Alpha support sub or nested reports? And if so, can you pass values between reports like in Crystal reports?
Yes, you can.
You can and you
in the report editor, if I go into here, you have what are called sub-reports and linked reports. And they're a little different animals, but these can relate to the top level report. So for instance, you could literally have a detail row and in there have a sub-report that relies on, say, the customer ID in this detail row, and that would get these elements here. So the answer is yes, and you'd use either a combination of, I don't know the difference, I forget, I think it's the linked report is the one I tend to use that does that linking between the parent and the child.
Sub-report.
Yeah,
right. All right, can we go back to that layout table editor for the report layout?
Sure, yes.
We just want to take a look at the editor, and there were just some questions like for example, what's going on here with that shaded area on the right? What does that mean? And what is the gray area?
So this is your point content area, and you can see this is the area that's just showing you, how much page space you have. So when you set the page setup, print setup, you tell it what you're going to be, and then it puts these things just to give you a feel for what a page would look like. So when you do the rendering, you'll actually kind of see what would be a page here, and you could print that from there. So the gray area just shows you can't drag or drop anything there, but you can adjust how much of that is available there.
And then
it's within there.
The rulers on the top would show you just the area that it doesn't go beyond. For example, it looks like this page can be no longer than, say, 7.5 inches in this case.
Correct. But you could change it and then show it in a different representation, like for A4 or legal letter, etc. And you'll notice it gives you little indicators to show you,
or stickers or all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and you can also put on here like, oh, okay, this is exactly where it is. So you can line up these tops so that you get them really lined up with how you want them on, so you can get nice balance for pretty looking reports kind of scenario.
Right. So that was actually the next question is it easy to make the rows narrower? Actually, that's a question like vertically and horizontally.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can adjust your rows kind of scenario. If I right click on this, you could split this row into two, you could delete it. So there's a lot of flexibility. Again, you're going to find Freeform's easier to use because it's drag and drop and very precise, but layout table will win you more fans down the road because of how fast it renders.
Right.
And it does support, as per that question, you can do a linked report here and build create another report, put in bindings in the link expression, and it will link whatever's in the parent to the child so that it properly presents the data that's related to its parent.
Excellent. So we have someone here who's got a report that they've created using the original control panel, and they want to know, how do I move that over to the web projects control panel?
Great question. So when you're on the reports here, let's see, where is that? Is it on here or? I might need help, but there is a command.
Create a report here, and then you can.
Yeah, there's a command right here that basically says, where is it? Well, you can convert, let's see, import reports.
There we go.
Okay.
So your current workspace doesn't have any in the web projects control panel, but if you were to have some, clicking import reports is the way to do it.
Yeah, but you can convert these traditional, because there was a time when everybody was sort of over here, and then
Yep,
they could quickly move them over into here, and so it's automated for you.
cool. All right. Import report. Yeah, okay. So someone was way ahead of us as we were struggling to find it. They're like, it's over on the left. Import reports. That's funny. All right, so I'm looking through here, and it looks like we have come to the end of the questions. Let's give people maybe 30 seconds to finish typing in a question they may have typed in.
Sure.
But otherwise, I
And
think
note, there are no creature reports.
There,
See
there
the
are done.
Aquanauts? Creature report, creature report. Of course, yeah. Anybody who has a little kid knows what I'm talking about. Man, that's permanently embedded in my brain.
Oh man, so many things get stuck there when you have
Ah,
kids.
I know. It's
Don't
like
bring up
I have
Barney. Yeah.
a lot of
No.
stack faults, stuff falling off the edge.
Cool. Well, it looks like what did we get
Oh, good.
images and reports. We do have
Yes.
we were almost off the hook here, but
No, that's great.
the
So if
report.
you're in Freeform,
Yeah.
you can, what you can do is you can present and this one's not a good example, but you can drag a field owner and present it as a image. So let me go ahead and
Uh-huh.
go to bitmap here.
So you could do a
So
static one, I guess, as an example for now.
yeah, there's a static
Yeah.
one. I'll go ahead and click on the properties here. No bitmap specify.
Properties, top one.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. So you get things like, how do you want it stretch tile best filled? Is it an embedded image? Yeah, I can change it and add an image directly into there, or it can be from a file image or from a library images. But also you can link it
Actually,
to the field
sorry,
itself.
can I stop you right there just while
Oh, yeah,
you're
yeah.
on that tab of the dialog
Oh,
box? And
yeah.
that is that it is really key to understand the notion of stretching and things like that, because sometimes what appears fine in the layout gets a little weird when it actually gets rendered. And you'll probably want to not use absolute, but use stretch in many cases, or even best fit. So do play around with that setting, especially if you find a case where you may find this, that you've printed out a report and the image that you thought was going to render at sort of a decent size renders really, really small. And that's because it's trying to figure out how many dots per inch it's supposed to fit on the report. It gets a little complicated there. So things like best fit or stretch often are your friends there. So definitely play around with that if report images aren't working the way you think they should be.
And so
Sorry,
this
go ahead.
can, yeah, that's a fixed image, but you could also link it to a file. You can also, which is really powerful, is you can have S3 images show up in here, which is really cool. Basically, what it does is it translates the URL of the object on S3, and it shows that image as an image in the report. So it takes and renders that URL as an image. And so I've done that before, and that's really cool. There's a couple steps you need to go through to tell it how to do that, but there's a great article and it's well defined on how to handle that on the Alpha documentation site, which Sarah manages.
So in the next 90 seconds, can you address this use case? Someone would like to have a report that would be emailed on a schedule.
Yes. Okay. So first, create the report.
Yep.
Secondly, the way I would do it is I would create an A5W page.
Mhm.
And this is just, an A5W page can install, and you can do XBasic. So hello. Okay. So this page, when it runs, it will hit here and run this XBasic.
Mhm.
So what you can do is using curl, and there's some other methods here. I think we have it historically where it is. What you can do is trigger this A5W page, and it's going to run this script. And you could trigger that using, say, for instance, the Windows Task Scheduler on your server to call it. Now in this XBasic, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go ahead and, just because it doesn't, the not full editor in here, so I'll just go ahead and go into the scripting here, is actually better yet, let me go to the documentation, which is where we all should go. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go A5W. Let's see, I think it's called save report. Okay. Yeah. So there is a function called, oh, that's the little different one. There is, there it is. A5 report save as. Oh no, which one is it? Where is it? There's a command that you can run that basically will, oh, I think it's A5 to be honest. Oh, I'm so sorry, it's in here. You can basically run a little XBasic script that will generate the report, save it as a file, and then inside that script, you can immediately run another XBasic command to send the email with that attachment.
Right.
And it all will happen in a script in an A5W page here. So you'll like do the report. The report can have arguments, can have everything else associated with it. Then you'll save that. Then you'll do an attachment. And I apologize. I should know where that is. I've used it enough.
That's okay. I only gave you 90 seconds to answer the question.
I know.
That's actually a really good one. Maybe we should build out the use case of that.
There we go. Here it is. Here it is.
Oh, all right, cool.
Okay. Anyway, check this article out. I'm going to copy
report save as.
All right. I'm putting it into the text box. But this allows you to basically, in an A5W, you give it all the information with the layout. You can pass in arguments. I mean, it's super flexible. And then it kicks out that file as a file on your drive. And then you can then use the email send with a file attachment to send that report to someone. So, and then you can periodically call this page from a task scheduler using the curl command. And what it does is the page never displays anything. It just runs the code and stops. And then but in that code, it does that step. So that's how I'd approach it.
Awesome. Good answer. Dion, thank you very much for presenting today. Appreciate it. We have come to the end.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thanks everyone for showing up. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the questions. If you have more questions, please send them to guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. Until then, I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.